Consistent with the person-centered planning and thinking approaches described by Michael Small, Patty Cotton and Susan Fox have detailed a framework and approach to facilitate person-centered planning in later life. The process and tools featured in the Tier 2 training modules are based on this publication. Cotton and Fox have worked with and conducted training for ADRCs and options counselors, so these tools have been used in working with older adults and people with disabilities who need decision support, including people with dementia. Patty Cotton and Susan Fox have adapted the team performance model for person-centered planning. The team includes the person with dementia, as well as family members or others who are important to them. The options counselors or case managers are also part of this team. In addition, others who provide daily support may also become members of the team. The phases of creating and implementing a person-centered plan are cumulative. Each builds on the one before. On the left side of the V are the creating stages and include orientation, trust building, and goal clarification. Once that is accomplished, the team can commit to a plan to achieve the goals that have been established. On the right side of the V are the sustaining stages of the model. These include implementation of the plan, a period of performance or maintaining the plan, and then renewal. The last two phases involve reviewing the plan and following up as needed. Again, the role of the options counselor or case manager is that of facilitator. Although 7 distinct phases are listed here, remember that phases are cumulative. They overlap and often flow seamlessly from one phase to the next. In this module, we begin with the orientation and trust building components of the model. These building blocks are critical for accurately identifying goals desired by the person with dementia as well as their family members. Before we describe these components of the model, we'll meet 2 of the central characters in our stories. Remember, these vignettes are portrayed by actors. Dennis and his daughter Sally are just beginning their journey with dementia. Albert is the information and assistance worker who first met Dennis by phone.
Dennis Smith called on Tuesday. He was pretty upset, telling me he wanted to get food. At first, I thought maybe he was late getting a home-delivered meal or that he needed a delivery from the food bank. But as I listened and asked questions, he was soon telling me that people kept rearranging his kitchen and that his microwave was not working and that he was hungry. He was also upset that his daughter hadn't arrived to help him. He started repeating himself and seemed confused. I asked him if his daughter would be coming soon. He said no and was angry because she was late. I asked if her phone number was by the phone, and it was. I asked if it would be all right if I called her to see if she could help figure out his lunch. He said he thought that was a good idea. When I called his daughter, she also seemed pretty upset, mostly because her father had called the ADRC. She said something like, "I told him I'd be there at 12:30. This is getting out of hand. He calls me all the time and can't seem to remember anything. I'm so sorry he bothered you." I assured her it was no bother. As we talked more, I learned about his confusion and her frustration. I told her about options counseling, and she was willing to have someone call. I also suggested that she might find the 10 signs of Alzheimer's disease or dementia helpful, and she could find it on the ADRC's Alzheimer's webpage. I also offered to send it to her. Finally, I encouraged her to have Dennis examined by his physician because his confusion could be caused by many things that could be fixed. I gave Sophia, one of our options counselors, the referral, and she will be visiting with Dennis and his daughter this afternoon.
Martha was well along in her journey with dementia before she came to the attention of the ADRC. This happened when a neighbor called the ADRC, and here's what she reported.
I'm really concerned about Martha. I think this house is too big for her. Her yard is getting more unkept, and I know she has trouble keeping it up. I think she was sick last year. I've seen her get into the car to do her grocery shopping, but I'm not sure how long she can do that. I don't think she's safe. The car is getting pretty scratched up. She used to be a school teacher. She never married, and I don't know that she has any family. I remember her sister died about, 5 years ago. She has friends come over sometimes, but I haven't seen anyone for quite a while. We're not really close, but we've been good neighbors for about 15 years. I've always enjoyed our visits when we both used to be working in the yard, and she always enjoyed my kids. Made them cookies and all the time when they were little. I'm really worried that Martha is getting forgetful. She made a big dinner last week for her friends, but no one came. She was really upset about it. I don't think she remembered to invite anyone. She was really vague about who she thought would come. She even mentioned her sister. I called aging services and let them know. I'm not sure what I can do, but I don't think she should be alone.
Services and information exist that can help Dennis and Martha. However, recall that a person-centered planning approach means that before we start talking to individuals and their families about formal supports, we need to know more about the goals they have for living a meaningful life and how each of them want to receive support to achieve those goals. Suggesting services for any of these individuals is premature at this time. Let's now return to the first steps of the team performance model. Most people haven't used the formal service system. This is certainly true for the people portrayed in this series. It is a safe bet that these individuals and their families didn't know what an options counselor was, what he or she did in that role, or what support was available to them. They didn't know what they themselves could do to improve the situation. The ideas and processes related to person-centered planning were new to them. So a major purpose of an orientation meeting is to frame the purpose of getting together. It involves helping people understand the purpose. Each one of them needs to know why they are in the room. That is, the reason for the meeting and what they are expected to do. Another purpose is to help participants understand the potential for person-centered planning in their situation. This does not mean giving a lecture on person-centered planning. In Dennis's story, the options counselor, for example, will explain the purpose of her visit is to get to know Dennis and what is important to him. This includes understanding his routine and what he wants to happen so that he can get a hot lunch when he wants it. At the same time, another important purpose of the visit is for the options counselor to better understand Dennis's daughter's needs and her ability to support Dennis. The potential for person-centered planning increases when participants understand the purpose of the meeting and recognize there are different perspectives that need to be considered, including their own. People with dementia and their families need to be recognized for their expertise and knowledge. Orientation also involves identifying membership on the team. That is, who should be involved in the discussion. One of the roles of the options counselor is to make sure all of the people who should be present are, or that their perspectives are well represented. Self-interest simply means that the facilitator needs to figure out what is driving participants and how to tap into that information to engage them in a person-centered planning process. At the center of the team is the purpose with dementia. As we learned in the Tier 1 series, personhood is of great importance to people with dementia. Maintaining the ability to direct one's own life is a common self-interest. Other important participants are family members or others the person with dementia identifies as a support person. Self-interest may involve the need to figure out who can provide the care, what it will cost in times and money. It may mean they want to gain new skills in working with their family members with dementia so they can prevent some of the distressful behaviors. Of course, self-interest may include providing as little support as possible or getting control over the person with dementia. Though these aren't typical responses, the options counselor or case manager needs to be aware of them. If a family member's self-interest does not include supporting the person with dementia the way they want to be supported, the ability to develop a person-centered plan is particularly challenging. The role of the professional then is that of a facilitator. These self-interests here involve doing a good job in facilitating a truly person-centered plan and in meeting agency expectations. A final component of the orientation stage of the process involves clarifying intentions of everyone who participates, along with establishing group norms, boundaries, values, and expectations. To do this, it is important to establish a safe place for conversations. The options counselor needs active listening and facilitation skills to ensure that everyone feels heard and respected. The facilitator can also help individuals articulate the views of how they got to this place and the problems they feel need to be addressed. Person-centered planning requires knowledge of the values and preferences of those who need support, including the person with dementia and their family members or support persons. The facilitator stresses the importance of a plan emerging from these values and preferences. Finally, the conversation should set expectations. What can the person with dementia or a family member be expected to do? What about the facilitator? Families may have unrealistic expectations about the kinds of services that are available to them, or they may want the facilitator to fix the problem rather than support them in coming up with solutions. They may not be aware of their strengths and abilities in this area. The team performance model of person-centered planning is supported by several visual tools that can be used in meeting needs with people with dementia. These have been organized into 3 categories which correspond to elements of the team performance model. In this module, we are focusing on tools of inquiry. These are the tools that aid in collecting and organizing information that will help to build trust and understanding and lay the groundwork for a shared vision of goals and the development of a person-centered plan. Notice that the options counselor will ask Dennis about his daily routine. Martha's options counselor will focus on the timeline of her life. Options counselors and others using these tools use flip charts or a portable whiteboard. Well, why the emphasis on visual tools? They may seem like a lot of extra work, but think about this webinar and the importance of using appropriate visual aids to maintain your interest and help your understanding. About 60% of us are visual learners. That is, we learn best when we can see. About 15% more learn best by doing. And research demonstrates that these types of learners also benefit from visual tools. Using visual aids helps provide a structure to a conversation and can help lead to discovery of important information that might not otherwise come up. They also help keep people focused on the task at hand. Visual tools reduces cognitive effort, which is especially helpful for people with dementia. Many people with dementia cannot follow conversations, but they can understand pictures or words. So visual tools serve as a memory aid. Visual tools support language comprehension and learning and help people see the bigger picture. It also helps the options counselor or case manager with facilitation. By seeing their comments or concerns printed for all to see, family members and people with dementia can feel heard, and it evens the playing field. It also reduces some of the repetitive comments, identifies individual and group strengths, and helps to manage conflict. Finally, meetings with visual tools often take less time than meetings without them because they help meetings run more smoothly. In our 3 stories, we will illustrate 3 different tools of inquiry that were used to learn about the situations of the characters in our stories, 2 in this module and 1 in Module 6. In later modules, we will illustrate decision-making and implementation tools.